Welcome to JC NERR and How We Got Here, the show where you get an inside look into the stories and experiences that brought each of our staff here to the Reserve. Today, we have Lisa Auermuller here with us. Lisa is the assistant manager here at JC NERR, and she has been with us. It's going to be coming up on 18 years in January. So thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your story on how you found your way here to the Reserve.
Thank you, Amy.
So let's get started. So, have you always had a passion for science, or was there a special moment or experience that kind of sparked that in you?
In middle school, I took an environmental science class and loved my teacher and loved that class and the topics. That's also when I decided marine science was the direction I wanted to follow for my career. So I would say it was around middle school and working with that specific teacher that really sparked it for me. And I will say I've gone back and told her that and have updated her on my career path as it's moved along. So I give her a lot of credit.
And that's incredible. Now, was that a private school or public school?
It was a public school. I grew up in upstate New York, right outside Albany, New York.
Okay.
And so it was at Shaker Junior High School that happened.
Well, that's incredible that they actually had that opportunity, because I know they're just starting in schools to integrate these electives and these other options. So to hear that, that's really cool that it was around then too.
Yeah, it was, I want to say, one of the first times they offered environmental science as something you could choose, and it was more commonly a science option for people that were less interested in science as a career path, but because I knew I was interested in the environment, I chose to add it. So
awesome. So you said you grew up in upstate New York. So what was the kind of environment that you grew up in? What kind of ecosystems and habitats did you kind of experience as a child?
That's a great question. Albany, New York is about as far up as the salinity gradient for the Hudson River goes. So I often say I did not grow up in a salty environment, but I think it's just very slightly, a teeny bit salty. But there's also a pine barrens habitat in upstate New York and Albany. And growing up playing in the woods in a large backyard was a very big part of my childhood. I grew up as one of 5 kids, so I think my parents just thought putting us outside was the best way to handle us. So I definitely grew up appreciating the outdoors and loving being outside. I still do, and I instill that in my children as well. But my love of the ocean and the saltwater environment came from summer vacations every year to Cape Cod in New England. And so we grew up every year knowing that my parents saved up for one big summer trip. And I just loved the coastal environment there. I love the rocky shoreline. And that, I believe, helped create a passion in me for wanting to do this work.
And I actually didn't realize that there's a pine barren region up that way. And so that actually makes overall your experience kind of similar to what we have here on the Reserve, which is really cool.
It is, and the other pine barrens habitat is, there's one out in Long Island, which I would have to drive through on my way out to my undergrad institution, where I did undergrad for college. So in a way, I've spent a lot of time in different pine barren habitats.
So for undergrads, you said you went to Long Island. Which university?
I went to Southampton College, which was part of the Long Island University system. I was there from 1995 to 1999. Southampton College does not exist as part of the Long Island University system anymore. So I think of my diploma as a bit of an archive of something that people can't get anymore. You can't get a degree from there. But SUNY Stony Brook has taken over a large part of the marine science program from the university. It was a very small liberal arts school with a very strong program in marine science that touted itself as being very, very hands-on. So there was a marine lab there. You could go out on research vessels. Very, very strong desire to have students do internships away from the school out in the field, which I took advantage of. And I even got to spend a spring semester on a sailboat, sailing the Caribbean, doing a semester at sea. So it was an amazing opportunity as an undergrad to really hone the knowledge about the coastal environment, but really understand too my passion, and a little bit put a reality check around our place in the world and how we're just a very small part of a much bigger water-based planet.
That sounds incredible. I know I went to Stockton, which is a small liberal arts college as well. It's growing, but it's still smaller. And I really appreciated that small size because you got that one-on-one experience with your professors. It just seemed a much, just deeper quality of learning. Now, did you know that all of this was going to be offered when you chose that college?
I did. It's part of the reason I chose it. Another reason was they gave me a very good financial aid package, so that helped. But I knew the experiential learning was something that Southampton was known for, and something that I knew I wanted to be involved in. So it was very much part of my decision making. And I think in a way it also shapes the way I feel about the programs at the Reserve, that it has to get to more than just teaching people in a classroom. It has to get people outside it. You do not truly appreciate something till you get out and get to experience and do it. So I think it shaped the way I think about our own work here.
It's like you said, it's so important to have that actual personal connection, because I feel like that's what really drives it home. Mm-hmm. Just watching in a video or reading in a book, there's something different about actually having a tactile, hands-on experience with it. Now, for your semester that was on the sailboat, were you researching anything specific? What was the project that you were working on?
So it actually was, believe it or not, it was a classroom-based program. So while you were on the sailboat, you learned programs like ichthyology, maritime culture, knot tying. So I actually, as unclassic of classroom education as you could get, they tried to do regular coursework on the boat. Obviously, the ichthyology fish biology class, we would catch fish off the sailboat, and it was a double-masted schooner, 125 foot. So we would catch fish and get to learn about them and understand them, dissect them right there, out sailing in the Caribbean. So it was a very hands-on as well, but it was a 12-credit semester. We were not technically working on a specific project, but it was really about trying to live and learn the coursework that was around us.
That sounds like a very unique experience, because ones that I've heard of or opportunities that I've heard of are ones that you're going for a specific project to study a certain species. But the fact that it was this hybrid that sounds like it was such a cool and really unique experience.
I think it was life-changing also. The idea, as I mentioned before, about sometimes when you're that age in your later teens, you feel like the world revolves around you, and to be sort of gaining a perspective that we are just a very tiny speck on this much larger planet, and then be able to interact culturally with other island communities that do not have the same resources we have in the U.S., that definitely are economically challenged. It was very eye-opening. It was really, I learned probably much more than I could have ever learned in a classical classroom setting in that one semester.
That is absolutely incredible. So that was your undergrad. So then where did your journey take you after undergrad?
So one of the great parts about being in an undergrad university with a lot of internship experience was that one of my internships took me to Florida Atlantic University in Boca Raton, Florida, where I got to work in a research lab alongside a bunch of graduate students and PhD students. So while I was sort of the intern in the lab, I got to experience what it was like to be a grad student and be in a lab. Up to that point, I did not think going on beyond undergrad was something I was really interested in. I just sort of 4 years of undergrad college sort of was feeling heavy and like it was enough, and I wasn't sure I wanted to do more school and papers, tests, all that. But after being in that internship and understanding better what it meant to be a grad student and really having passion around a specific project and studying a specific research focus area, I did decide to apply to grad schools. And I ended up getting accepted and finding an advisor at UNC Chapel Hill in North Carolina. So my next journey took me to North Carolina. I spent 9 months on the campus at Chapel Hill getting the coursework done as a grad student. And then I spent the rest of about 2 additional years out in Morehead City, North Carolina, which is along the coast of North Carolina, where UNC has their marine science lab. So I got to live at the beach and get paid to be a grad student studying natural products chemistry. So understanding better how organisms living in the marine environment, how they have chemical properties naturally that help them defend themselves from predation, but how we as humans could benefit from some of those same properties to help protect ourselves or to help with medicinal uses. Or one example is sunscreens that can be extracted from properties found in coral reefs. So that's the kind of passion that my grad school took me on.
So like having New York, and then what was different about like the beaches down there?
Yeah, so I might have been able to see myself staying there forever, but I have a very strong family tie back up in Albany. I grew up in a big family, so being able to be close enough to get home quickly on a weekend was important to me. So I hence why I found myself back in the New York, New Jersey area. But the wide beaches of the southern part of North Carolina, the warmer summers into falls, shorter winters, and just that southern hospitality, friendliness, very inviting. I think the Carolinas have a lot to offer in terms of not just natural resources, but culturally the people that live there are just so welcoming. It was a wonderful place to study. We are fortunate in our reserve system family. There is a few components of the research reserve system in North Carolina. So part of my grad school work was looking at the Rachel Carson Reserve, which is part of the North Carolina National Estuarine Research Reserve. And then now where my family goes to vacation in the Outer Banks, there's another part of the North Carolina Reserve, another component site, which is the Currituck Banks component of the North Carolina National Estuarine Research Reserve. So I definitely still find myself going back to the North Carolina coast, and even though it's a vacation from work, I sometimes still find myself enjoying the same things I enjoy while at work. So I guess that means it's a true calling for me.
Absolutely. So you went right your undergrad straight into grad school. When you graduated, what did you find yourself? Where'd you find yourself?
So knowing, I guess because I'm a planner to some degree, and I like to know my path, or at least know what my options are, knowing I was gonna finish my thesis in the winter of 2001, I had started looking for job opportunities, searching the New York, New Jersey region sort of as a geographic range of what I was interested in. By that time in grad school, I had decided that research in a lab wasn't my true passion or my true calling, but I thought that environmental education, outreach, engagement with people was a much better fit for my skill set and where I felt I would want to develop a career in. So through some creative Google searches, a science communicator who happened to work for the reserve at the time named Janice McDonald kept coming up in my searches. And so I figured I should reach out to this Janice and just sort of drop a cold email to her saying, I'm looking for jobs in the field in the New York, New Jersey area. Your name keeps showing up, and can you give me advice? Happened that the reserve was looking to hire a new position, the first full-time position here in Tuckerton. At the time, all the other staff members worked up in New Brunswick at the Institute of Marine and Coastal Sciences. So in some crazy twist of fate, my email was well timed. I interviewed for the position in the fall of 2001. And by December of 2001, I knew I had secured the position at the reserve. So a handful of days after graduating with my master's degree from Chapel Hill, January 2nd of 2002, I started my first day at the job at the reserve, and I have been here ever since.
Wow, that is, like, you never stopped. It just kept going.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a long, crazy ride, but a really great ride, and I'm still here. So I guess that means it works. It's working for me. It's working for the reserve, and I can literally say I feel like I've grown up professionally at the reserve. I started here when I was 23 years old, bright-eyed, very full of energy and wanting to change the world in terms of marine science, and definitely have learned it's much more nuanced than that, and have had a lot of professional mentors that have helped me get to where I am professionally.
Now, while you started in a different position, how did you wind up landing or getting to the position now that you have as assistant manager? How did that go?
That's a great question. So I'll restate that when I first started here at the reserve in 2002, the building had just recently opened. There was at that time only a part-time person working in the building at all. So I was the first full-time person in the building. And I think in a way that sort of set my career trajectory, because I was the eyes and the ears of what was happening here in Tuckerton at the reserve, and I became the point of contact for our local partners and for the community in terms of interacting with the reserve. At the time, my position title was watershed coordinator, so it meant a whole lot of things, and I was doing a whole lot of things. But I also was able to launch the beginning of the coastal training program at the reserve. And that's still a role that I have now. I still oversee the coastal training program. I still help develop and deliver programs to coastal decision makers who could benefit from having additional science to inform their decisions. But over time, as we gained more staff and we gained more attention from the local community, and we gained more appreciation for the work we've done here, my role has had to shift over time to being more the on-site manager for the day-to-day operations of the building, overseeing the staff that work here day-to-day. So my job, I guess, has grown along with me in my position, and has grown along with the way the reserve has matured over almost the past 20 years. So I guess it's been a natural progression, one that comes with both success of the reserve, but I think also a recognized achievement of what we collectively do here, and instilled a sense of what we mean to the local community, which is really important.
What are your goals moving forward? Like, for your work here, what do you hope to not necessarily accomplish, because that seems like a very finite ideal, but just what are your goals? What do you want to do while you're here?
So I think I would have a couple different answers. I think one, I have an answer for me personally, and I have an answer for sort of a bigger vision for the reserve. I definitely think that we, as a reserve family here at the Jacques Cousteau Reserve, we all are so passionate about our job. We tend to take on a lot of work, and so one of my goals is being able to be in the position to bring more staff on, because I think there is enough work to go around, and I feel like we're already making such an impact, but having more bodies here that have that same passion about the work and able to spread the message more, get more programs on the ground, get more science done in the field. I just think our reach and our impact can be that much greater with more staff. With that said, with more staff and more work comes we need a bigger place to do all that. So we've been definitely working as a staff to think about a future vision for what our building footprint might look like into the future, what our needs are from a research standpoint, from an outreach standpoint, from a engaging the local community standpoint. So that's sort of a big vision, overarching goal for me, is to better fit us physically as a staff and our programs, but also to bring our staffing level up to meet the demand of all the programs that we have. So that's a big one. Another thing that has been happening here at the Reserve is we've given visitors more of an opportunity to do something when they're here. So the trail, the Grassley March Trail, has been a huge goal of mine, to have something people can come and do and appreciate the environment in a way we weren't able to give them access to before. So that has been, it's sort of set a new bar for an experience people can have while here at the Reserve. Yes, they can come to a class. Yes, they can listen to a research talk, but to be able to pair that, or even just come for a half hour and walk on our trail and get that renewal of what it means to be in our natural environment, has been another really big goal for mine. So keeping that trail up and maybe even seeing it forward to an expansion in the future would be something else I want to do. So those are some big overarching goals.
It's a lot to accomplish, but I think even so far, just from when you started here to where you are now, so much has grown with everybody, but also with your help as well. There's so much that's happening, and there's so much optimism for the expansion and more that we can do in the future. So that's something that's really, really incredible. But just thank you again so much for joining us. And like I said before, you have done so much here, and you just gave a little baby glimpse with our chat with what you've actually done, and we are so grateful to have you here with us. It would not be the same place without you, and rather without everybody here, but just because you're such an integral part of how we've grown. But we can't wait to see what's next in store for expansions and like your role in it, and just seeing what the future holds for all of us.
Thank you so much, Amy. I really appreciated being able to talk about it and reflect on it. It's been a long time, and a lot has happened, professionally, personally, and you're right, we are in a very exciting time for the Reserve. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity to really think about it and dig back into the history a little bit. It was very rewarding. Thank you.